Mindy and Betsy? Because we knew Lisa was.
We knew Lisa was
Yeah.
I think Betsy's going to be a little hard.
Call to order this pre-agenda meeting for the Siloam Springs Board of Directors, October 1st. I'm sorry, this is September the 24th, 2024. Yeah. Roll call.
Blair. Long.
Here?
Wiles.
Here.
Hunt. Chrysler. Allen.
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
Thank you. So with that, directors, we will move into our pre-agenda meeting. And Alan, I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first thing on our consent agenda is the regular meetings minutes, and then we have board goals minutes, and then budget workshop minutes again in D, board consent, the PDRC nominations, that's Sally Williams and Kenny Menard. Is there any questions there? If not, we're moving on to F, auditing services, 24 to 26, landmark CPAs for $193,500. Christina's here if you have any questions on that. Item G on consent, reappointment of Jim Crail, Regional Airport Authority Board. Jim has been serving on our Airport Authority Board. I think he has another term and wants to serve again, so I've appointed him and waiting on approval for the board there. And then H, 2020.
Alan, if I might, just on that, I talked to Art Morris, because Jim is actually out of town right now, but Art Morris is our other representative on that authority board, and he said that Jim had really done a good job of representing Siloam Springs and making wise decisions on our behalf and on part of the whole region. So he very much supported us reappointing him. I did talk to Jim at our last, whenever we were at the airport, the regional airport, for the groundbreaking, and he expressed to me how much he had enjoyed serving on that board and that he appreciated us having that trust in him to do that and to represent us. So I wanted to be sure and tell the board that I think we should feel very comfortable about reappointing him and him continuing to be our representative.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, David?
just to clarify.
Yes.
This position is appointed by the mayor.
Yes, sir, it is.
The commissions and things, I believe, are from the city administrator, but the X&A is from the mayor, I believe.
That is correct. That is as per the agreement between all the cities
Yeah.
whenever this was established.
Art has been on there for a few years.
Yes, he
Do
has.
you know when his term comes on?
I do not.
I think they're staggered.
They
on
are,
Each
it's
city.
6-year, each
Yeah.
city has 2 representatives,
Yeah,
and the terms are staggered, they're 6-year terms. So probably we're looking at in the next 2 to 3 years, Art will be coming up.
Madam Mayor, I'll
Ye-
reiterate what you said if you're talking about Jim Crawl. He
Yes.
mentioned something to me, too, about how much he's enjoyed serving on the board and thanked you for allowing him to
Yes.
serve.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I correct myself that is your appointment. You and I had talked extensively about it, and
Yes.
I supported that decision. And like I said, I've heard nothing but good things as he served on that board. And then letter I, 2024.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I should have been, as you was going down, sorry, it was going a little fast for me. On E, who picked those 3?
That was my choices that bring before the board. We have 7 board members that are on that board right now. JW is the current chair that is not eligible. Mr. Song will be rolling off the board, and he's out of time. He's already served, I think, 2 terms, Chris, am I correct? And so he'll be rolling off, and these 3 members are the ones that were the ones out front saying, we want to serve on this board.
Did we send out an application? Do we sometimes send out an application for planning commission?
Well, yes, for the planning commission, but this is just for that committee that's being set up.
The subcommittee, okay.
Yes.
To the subcommittee
Yes.
that's
Okay,
be
I'm
made
sorry.
up of the planning commission
Yeah,
members.
okay.
When do the applications for this and parks and the other ones come up? Do you know?
Don't know offhand, but
I think
I will check for you.
it's
It
October,
determines on
November.
it's determined by the, yeah, do you,
No, they're coming up.
it is now?
Yes.
So Janae
By-
is saying
by
it
the end of-
is,
Yes, by the end of the year,
By the end
they'll
of
have
the
to be
year.
appointed. I do Parks and Rec. I believe they're reaching out to see if the current ones want to serve another term because they have done well. They've only served one term each. So that is my understanding, if I'm not wrong. Planning Commission has posted that.
With him saying 2 were up on planning, I didn't know when.
Planning has.
Somebody asked me if they could apply, and I didn't know when it
Planning
opened
has
up.
posted theirs and asked for applications. I believe that went out in the paper a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
So that has posted, but I don't know if any applications have been received. I have not received any.
And when we post that to the board, I'll make sure that I'll get that to the board.
That's what I was going
board
to say, is
members
in
that
the
they get
future,
that.
just, I would appreciate if the board gets a heads up in advance of when that's coming up, or the opening dates for those. Because I guess Utility Commission's one of them, right? Utility Commission, Planning and Zoning, and Parks.
Thank you, and as I continue on F, I know you got way ahead of me. How long has Landmark been servicing us in this position? You can just yell out, you don't have to come up.
The last 3 years.
Oh, just 3? Okay. And I will, in the main meeting, want to discuss the emergency medical service contract. Just for the public info, I would like you to give a little bit more detail on public. You can do it now if you'd rather do it now than then. But I'd like a little bit of detail so the public would know. There has been some concern in the past about how far we can go, when our district, where we run out and when we're actually technically out of our service area. It used to be a problem years and years ago, and I thought it's the same thing with fire. I'm not in any way against these agreements. I'm just would like the public to have more information.
With, Madam Mayor, Mark, if you're asking for that, I would ask that explanation be at the regular board meeting rather than tonight, simply because the regular board meeting is when most people are watching, and the public would be most informed at the regular board meeting.
Thank
I
you for
just
that
didn't want
input,
to
because Chief
surprise you
Kendall will
then.
be, I'm sorry?
I just didn't want to surprise you. I'm not going to ask
No.
a bunch of questions. I just would like you to give a little detail, maybe where the areas are, how our history, just a little bit, so, and the fire chief can, but I
I
just.
appreciate that. That'll help get Chief Kendall prepared, and he'll know to speak on that next Tuesday.
Madam Mayor, I also had, on Jim Kroll, I had
Yes.
asked Jonathan Barnett, how was it, because he's representing the county.
Right.
And he said Jim's doing a fantastic job, and he's my neighbor, Mindy's neighbor. We've known him a long time, so, yeah, he does a good job
he's a really,
representing the city.
he is a great representative, yes, he is.
Okay, then moving on to I think we've gone over this 24 Fire Protection Services contract, West Siloam Springs. The fire chief can answer a question if you have on that. Chief, you just want to give him a quick update on that? I know you just had a meeting.
I really just wanted it in the public, so the public will know that, I'm not going to ask a bunch of questions. I just would like the public to know more of the detail.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
More than happy to-
I'm sorry, we just talked, mine went somewhere else. Thank you. So we'll touch that on next Tuesday. And moving on to resolutions, Resolution 44-24, Significant Development Permit, 3948 Highway 412, Revised O'Reilly Auto Parts. Ms. Megan.
Thank you. Hold on, I'm going to make this presentation stop. There we go. Okay, this is a significant development request. Whoa. Okay, I guess that's the first slide. A significant development request. This is for the O'Reillys, which you guys recently approved. They're making a change to the plans to add an additional driveway to allow connection to that remaining portion of the property over there so they don't have so many driveways trying to access. I'll go to the little plan set now. So you can see this is the driveway that they are adding with this plan. So that wasn't on the previously approved plan set, but now they're adding it. And the only reason they're coming back through is because this is greater than 10% of a change. Staff is still recommending approval. We have some conditions are listed out there, so they'll have to get a lot split for the property, and they'll have to file the utility and drainage easements via that lot split survey. So staff's available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you,
Madam
Megan.
Mayor?
Yes, David.
Megan, I still do not understand how something like this can have street fees of almost $10,000, but a huge housing addition can have $2,000.
Kevin?
Kevin Moore, city engineer. So those street fees are based off of the number of trips, that are generated by a development. That is, we have a cost in our master street plan of a certain amount per trip. Houses typically generate about 9.5 trips per lot for a single-family house. And then depending on the commercial development, it's based off of square footage. And there's Institute of Traffic Engineers has done studies across the U.S. about what traffic to expect based off of the use type.
Well, I will tell you, I believe our street fee formula is not correct. When I was attempting to develop my 20 acres, and it was 13 lots, estate plan, estate project, large homes, I was told a cul-de-sac of 13 homes was going to have 700 trips back and forth on De Villaview. And I have a hard time believing that that would be generated, but that's what I was told, is that there's a big old book about this thick. The city engineer at the time said, yeah, we have to go by this national book that everybody says this is how many trips would be generated. I can't understand. And that only came up because planning department at the time was insisting my driveway move 35 feet to the east because of the street outside my property was dangerous. But I can't imagine 700 trips of where I was going to develop, and I certainly can't imagine the amount that comes up on housing. And I don't understand how $10,000 can be applied on a commercial business like this. I mean, is this not coming off of 412? Is there a street that's going to this besides 412?
No, they're connecting directly to 412.
So how can we have street fees when the only street to it is a state highway?
The expectation is that they will use our traffic system as a whole. So not just the state highway itself, but so as somebody comes from their residence to go to O'Reilly or to another development, and then for your subdivision that you were looking at in the past, I would expect about 130 vehicles per day from a 13-lot subdivision.
Well, that's not what Don and Ben and Justin told me at the time. That's why I had a hard time believing 700 vehicles. But that's what they said was in this big old book. I honestly cannot understand how we could charge street fees when there is no city street involved with this project, or, basing it upon trips coming from around the city. I mean, we're also charging street fees for where people are putting in housing. So almost seems like we're double dipping to have street fees where people are leaving their home, and then street fees for when people are coming to a business off of a state highway. It's just very odd to me.
Anyone else?
No other questions for Resolution 4424. Move on to K, Resolution 4524, Special Use Development Permit, 300 block of North Simon Sager Avenue, Tillman Communications Tower.
Okay, Megan Thomas, Planner One again. So this is another resubmittal. This project was approved in 2021 for special use for a cell tower. The reason for the special use is based on the cell tower's height. The project has expired. Our code says for special use requests that they must they must begin that use within a year of approval for special use. So obviously, this was approved in 2021. They have since expired, so they're coming back through. Staff is still recommending approval of the cell tower. We have one condition for co-location until the tower reaches capacity, and staff is available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Directors?
Megan, this is located close behind the urgent care clinic, is that correct?
Yeah, it's a few lots behind it. So there's the urgent care, and then you have the new Sherwin-Williams building, and I believe there's a lot or two between Sherwin-Williams and this property.
There's going to be a lot of development here, it seems. I have a real hard time seeing a cell tower, which is pretty ugly, being built right in smack dab the middle of all of this development. I would think a cell phone tower would be off to the side where there's not a lot of commercial stores, housing, whatever. I mean, this is right near the Brick Oven Pizza. And I don't think anybody wants their pizza to be irradiated by a cell phone tower. I just don't think this is a good location for a cell phone tower, and especially because of what's being built all around it. Why is this location the one that was chosen instead of somewhere that's empty?
So they got approval on this in 2021. I was not here at the time of the original approval. So I know that they own the property, and obviously that's why they would like to continue forward with the proposed cell tower as planned.
But we don't have to approve it just because that's what they want to put there. They could put something else or put their cell tower somewhere where there's not a lot of businesses around it. See, the one that, not necessarily cell, but was originally for TV and everything else, was south of the Taco Tico and the White Oak Station and all that, which is now where Dairy Queen is. And it was out in the middle of a field. It still is. There's nothing underneath it, nothing around it. And it seems really odd that this is going to be right in the middle of several very active community, commercial businesses.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Mark.
In this vein, and I'm just asking a question. In Fayetteville, they have several cell phone towers that look like, not really, but kind of look like trees. You've seen them, right?
Very tall pine trees.
So, well, they are more aesthetically pleasing, at least slightly. Have they designed a very specific regulation for such things, or do we have anything like that where we could ask it to be a little prettier than?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So it's my understanding that some of Fayetteville's naturalistic towers have been converted back to their more
Oh, really?
to a more tower type design. They tend to still stand out. I'm sure that anyone that's driven through parts of the east side of Fayetteville has seen some of the 175-foot trees that that clearly stand out. But I don't believe that since we don't have any of the design standards, I'm not sure what the current regulations are relative to design standards for commercial towers. I do know that some of those requirements have changed over the last few years of what cities can and can't require on commercial towers. I don't know if that impacted what happened in Fayetteville and what some of those changes have been over the past few years. But it is something that I can definitely look into and get back with you on.
Would you please? We're only going to get more. It's only going to get. And I'm not saying those tree-looking towers are better. I'm not saying they are. I'm just wondering, if we have anything even in the pike of trying to make it more aesthetically pleasing. And it's not off the same thing David said. I mean, sometimes you don't really want them on the main drive, so to say. Maybe we could, in investigating it, declare we want it so many feet away from tributaries or whatever it is we decide that, so would you mind looking a little bit, not super duper in depth, but a little into our ability to regulate this?
Can definitely do that. I'll reach out to some of my counterparts in other cities in Northwest Arkansas and see what their regulations are relative to that. One of the things that we do to reduce the amount of towers, though, is if you look at the co-location requirement, is to allow to ensure that those can be co-located, so you can use one tower for multiple entities instead of just having one tower per entity. So if we have those co-location requirements, that is what that's there for, is to reduce the amount of towers overall.
Anyone else?
Just out of curiosity, with as much land as the city has where the airport is, why wouldn't the city have put a tower out where not in the path of the airplanes, of course, but off to the west where we have so much property, where there's some of the hangars? We, as a city, could have been doing this very same thing and been making some income off of it. I just noticed it because of the airport was on the same map.
Chris?
I am definitely not the airport specialist in the room, but I do know that there's different types of easements on the north and south sides of our airport that would limit some of that. And I do know that there's some limitations on the east and west, but I think our airport specialist might be able to give a little bit of information.
James?
James Harris, Community Services Manager. For the airport, all of that property has been purchased with FAA funds, and we get our grant through it. So anything that goes on there has to be aviation related. And also, by putting a plane out there, that just makes an incursion possible, or putting something that tall out there, it just would never be approved for that property because of it would eventually be in the flight path if someone had a emergency landing somewhere out that direction and was trying to get to the airport. So that'd be the main issue, that it would be for the 173 feet, because that's going to be within some of those smaller planes flight paths.
I just know we have a lot of property out there is why
We do, but hopefully we're going to expand out and
Yeah,
fill that with hangar space.
Thank you, Jim.
Alan?
I have no other questions. Moving on to L, Resolution 4624, preliminary plat development permit for Bath Homes of Siloam Springs subdivision, 2600 block of North Country Club Road.
I believe Megan's up again.
Megan Thomas, Planner 1. Okay, so this is a preliminary plat request for property located at the 2600 block of North Country Club Road. The applicant is requesting to establish the Banff Homes of Siloam Springs subdivision consisting of 153 lots situated on 18.43 acres. The subdivision consists of 149 single-family residential attached townhome lots, 1 recreational open space lot, 2 commercial lots, and 1 lot to serve for the detention of the development. As some of you may recall, the PD and C1 zoning was approved for the property in 2023 with a conceptual layout. As you can see, the proposal has 0 lot lines for the residential portion of the development to allow for individually owned townhome lots. The proposal does meet the intent of the previously approved planned development zone. Again, that was approved in July of 2023. The subdivision will have access onto both Brashears and North Country Club Road and provides additional housing options to individuals and families looking to move to the community. The proposal also includes a planned recreational area, as discussed in the PD narrative, and that's this little lot right here. That's lot 112. So lot 112 has a playground, and it will have some pickleball courts. It also has some parking, which you can just kind of make out right there. So we have guest parking provided throughout the development. You can see some guest parking over here as well as here. A shared parking agreement will be required with the commercial lots along the frontage so that those residentials have a little more parking. Some notes have been added to the plat. I have those down here, but it's kind of hard to make out what they're saying. So no parking will be permitted on the streets. That note has been added. And things like the landscaping and parking will be sorted out with the significant development review, as this request is a multifamily by our code definition. And therefore, they will have to go through significant development review. Staff is recommending approval with 4 conditions as stated in your staff report, and staff is available for any questions that you may have. Oh, also, I haven't received any calls or correspondence on this from any of the citizens.
Thank you, Megan.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Ken?
Megan, just so I understand, you said no parking on street. So if you are, I'm sorry, I cannot read the numbers. Somebody who's living right there, okay, about halfway down on the top. And they have somebody come over, where are they going to park? Do they
Yeah.
have to park at the very end and walk down if there's no parking on the street? And just as an example, say one of the residents, new young couple, have a baby. Well, you know, grandma and grandpa on both sides want to come see that baby. So they all invade the house. They can't park in the driveway, right? They can't park on the street. So are they forced then to go to the end of the block and park there?
So they'll have to utilize the guest parking spaces as shown on the plan. Again, we also have a shared parking agreement that will be required with the commercials. These residentials are meeting the minimum parking requirement for a residential unit, which is 2 parking spaces per unit. They did, at one point, they had some drives proposed up there to serve those middle little portions, that exact area that you were talking about, actually. Planning had a little bit of a concern with all those little individual drives added there because we already had a concern with how many drives were going to be on the street as it is and the lack of green space between those drives. So in order to preserve some of that open space area and keep it from endless drives on the street, we asked them to move their guest parking over to these sides to where it wouldn't be just nonstop drives on one street.
I don't like that,
That's not deleting.
but that discussion, I guess, is not for now. But, so I may have to come visit you. I just think there's better alternatives. But
Actually, this is the time to ask this, the preliminary plan.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to think about that. I'm just saying you have to park at the end of the block and walk halfway down, especially, you know, if it's somebody, I have to be careful because I'm approaching real quick, but older, you know, I was going to say elderly, that's probably not the best term to use. But I just, looking at that, I'm having a real hard time saying I can support that. But at this point, I mean, and I've looked, well, I haven't looked at it because I couldn't get the map out online to look at it. I don't know, I'm going to have to think about that. I may have more to say between now and then, but I don't know. That just doesn't look right to me, but thank you for your explanation.
Okay, yeah, and I will say, we're going to review the significant development, but I will say we don't typically allow stacking. So their 2 parking spaces that they have to be side by side, and it can't be 1 parking space and then another parking space behind it. So it should allow some additional room for people to come in there if they need to.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Just Mindy, I'm sorry. Mark had asked for the floor. First, so I'll come to you, Mark, and then back to you, Mindy.
I have several concerns. First of all, why are we doing a preliminary plat, and this started in '23? Is that what you said? Why are we just now doing a preliminary plat?
So most of the time when we get PD developments, I would say the bulk of them since I've began here have not actually come through with a development proposal after they get their zoning. We actually had one that came through at the same exact time as this PD development. We had 2 PDs on one agenda. You're seeing this one now, but we still haven't even heard back from the other person on Tahlequah about their PD. So that just seems to be the way that development works. Sometimes they get their zoning, they wait to sell the property, find a developer. It takes some time for those things to happen. And so you're seeing this a year later, and that's typical for these types of developments.
Well, I'm very uncomfortable with PD as a general rule. I am horribly uncomfortable with zero lot lines. The zero lot lines that we have in town have left a bad taste in my mouth, especially about the parking, and I think Ken brought up a very valid point. We have allowed others to park in the street and have made narrow streets and made it impossible for safety equipment to come up and down the streets. And it appears to me that an R2, which is the closest, I think, that we have in another development plan, has a 7,000 square foot yard, and we're allowing pretty close to 2,000 square feet a yard in this particular development. I know there's a lot of people that want us to build more affordable housing. I think it's a misleading word, but I think that what we're doing is we're allowing them in a drainage area to build some pickleball courts, and we're calling that good. And instead of having 7,000 square foot yard, which is really too small for most families to live in, we're allowing 8.9 houses per acre? I remember when an acre was the standard size. I mean, I know that was a long time ago, but that's how much you had to have to build a septic system. You needed an acre, and now we're building nearly 9 houses per acre. I realize we don't have septic systems, but I'm very uncomfortable, and I believe, in my opinion, that we are full in Siloam Springs of affordable teeny houses, and we're still saying yes. So I don't believe I'm going to be able to say yes to this. I realize they've been trying to do this since '23, and I'm sorry that it took them this long, but I am uncomfortable with 149 lots on 18 acres.
Mindy?
So these are mostly townhomes, not separated single-family homes, right? Which is a little bit different than most of the developments that we have been approving over the last few years, right? I mean, I know what Mark is talking about. We've done a lot of approval of more of developments, but I think the majority have been more single-family, unattached. Am I right? I see Megan. So this is a little bit unique.
That's correct. This is these are townhomes, and when the PD was approved at the rezone in July 18th, 2023, it locked a lot of these requirements in by ordinance. So these, the time for a PD for the concept to have been approved, the concept was approved already in July 18th of 2023. The challenge with a PD is once the PD meets those minimum requirements, it's now subject to any other type of zoning standard, where once they meet the zoning standard, in this case, if this project meets that zoning standard established in the PD that was approved on July 18th, 2023, then there's an obligation to approve it if it meets the development standards.
Right. And when I say this is somewhat unique, I know that there are a couple of more townhome-like structures on Country Club Road, which kind of makes this match sort of what's out there. It seems like that's where, but I would venture to say that there are, while I understand, not wanting a property that doesn't have much lawn space, I think there are people that prefer that because they don't have the lawn to take care of. So I think it could meet a need there. But I also understand the parking situation. But my question is more, if we're going to say no parking, are we going to make sure we enforce that? Because we have talked about how it can be a real problem for some of these streets getting through when people are parking on the streets. And how far would someone, if they park in the community parking area, how far would they have to walk? And will there be drop-off zones, like if someone needs to be dropped off in front of a townhome. There's not going to be anything stopping that, will there?
As far as who is going to enforce no parking on those streets, the applicant has stated that that will be part of their covenants, and
Okay.
it's on the plat.
Okay.
So it'll come down to them. And your other question on how far they would have to walk.
Yeah, so
from those
someone
gas-
has to, someone wants to see someone in one of the middle condos, and they have to park in one of the community parking lots. Is it a very far walk? And if so, is there a place where someone could be dropped off right in front of a middle condo? A person that may have more difficulty walking.
Without being able to measure from these guest parking spaces to those units, I can't really say exactly how far they would have to walk. They'd have to walk over a building or two.
But okay, but they could be dropped off potentially.
Yeah, they could be dropped off in front of the house, and as long as you're not stalled in the
I mean,
street, you could
yeah.
just pull up and drop
And
someone
then I
off.
think I heard you say too that even though the parking is, what, two car spaces wide, there could be some room for people that are visiting to park behind them and
And-
still be on the parking, or on the,
Yeah, and that's dependent on what we see in the significant development. I'm just saying that we don't allow them to make it a super narrow drive and stack their two parking spaces.
Right.
We require them to be side by side. And so
Okay.
they'll have to meet that requirement, so.
because then you get the problem sometimes with people parking right in the middle of the sidewalk because they're behind.
Mm-hmm. And that's
So you don't want
exactly why
that,
we
but-
don't allow the stacking.
Right, okay. Okay, thank you.
Betsy?
Madam Mayor, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'll come to you next, Ken.
I know we've discussed this before, but going back to what Chris said, basically, if this meets the standards, we have to vote for it. Am I understanding that correctly?
I'm not going to say what you do or do not have to vote for. I would say that the Supreme Court in Arkansas this falls back under what we've talked about before, which was Richardson v. City of Little Rock Planning Commission. If you have a design standard, and in this case, the design standard was adopted by the ordinance that was that rezoned this lot. So there's the custom standards for a PD. Whenever it was rezoned in July 18th of 2023, it established some custom standards. Once it meets the custom standards and the minimum design standards of the code, then the city is obliged to approve.
And you're saying this meets all of those? Megan's nodding.
If there's no variance or waiver requests, then it generally meets the requirements of the code.
So they had some custom standards, but there were certain criteria like their setbacks, their floor to area ratio, open space. Those criteria were not reviewed as part of this because we don't have a significant development proposal yet to review those criteria. And those were some of the custom things that they had. But the ones that they customized that we did review on this were like the minimum lot width, the minimum lot surface area, those things.
And I'm sure y'all know where I'm headed. I just don't understand things that come to the board that we're told we have to vote yes on.
And I think that this, in most cities, this type of a preliminary plat approval would end at a planning commission. The board, I believe it was about 9 months ago, one of the discussion items was whether or not to move certain items to provide additional autonomy to the planning commission. And a discussion occurred that the board did want to have that additional oversight just to get the additional eyes on it, because maybe you do see something that maybe it doesn't meet the code requirement, and you point it out to staff, and that's a possibility. I wouldn't speak for the board, but at this point in time, the board has chosen to take an additional step from the planning commission to be approved by this board.
Okay, thank you.
And Chris, if I may, when I was reviewing this with staff going through this, because it's a little before my time before I started, this was actually brought before the board and the second and third readings were combined. So we had never actually had a third reading. I can't remember, Megan, you'll know the lady, she actually came in person and spoke.
Yeah, it was either Sue Ellen Coleman or Misty Coleman that got up and requested to combine it, but it was combined with second and third readings.
But it didn't have a third reading, you're saying?
They
Second,
combined
third.
them.
Second and third was combined.
They had a first, and then the next meeting, they did the second and
Oh,
third together.
Okay. I have some questions.
Okay,
Whoever.
so I'm going to Ken first, and I'll come to you, David.
Again, maybe I just misunderstood, because Minnie had said something on the parking. I understand they're not allowed to stack, and so in this case, they are side by side. But do you know, or can you say, those driveways, because these lots, of course, this picture is awfully small, but these parking spaces, it looks to me like you cannot, if I understood your question, have two cars back to back. So if the residence has two vehicles and somebody comes to see them, is that parking lot big enough or the parking space for another car to be behind them?
We don't have a proposal showing the proposed driveways yet, so that would be reviewed with the significant development request.
Okay. Because it seems to me like if that's the case, that kind of goes against what, I mean, that's, on one hand, you're saying you can't stack, but then on the other hand, you're saying, well, this is big enough, if somebody comes, they can park behind, my car.
I think to clarify, so what we don't allow is a single, say, a driveway that's only one parking space wide, and for them to count it as too deep. So we require them to have two parking spaces wide for their driveway, but the depth is up to them. So they could make it deep enough for 6, or it could be barely deep enough for those 2. But we don't allow a 9-foot wide driveway.
Okay, so as long as two can go side by side, that's basically the requirement.
That's the requirement. So
Okay.
it could be deep enough for more, it may not be, and we would evaluate that in the future.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you.
Yeah, David?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a few questions for staff. When this was first brought to us, was all the lots drawn out? Was the 149 lots part of the first proposal? Or was it just the shaded picture?
So it looks like it's just a shaded picture. I can kind of hand this to y'all so you can pass it around. But it looks like it's a shaded picture kind of showing the general area of the lots and the proposed driveways. You can take my little packet.
So this is what we did have?
Yes.
Can't tell if all the numbers that are written here total up 149. There, you can pass that down.
I checked that and it does match the units that's on the
Okay.
concept plan. That was part of my
Well, I
review.
trust you, Megan. I trust you. Let me ask you real quick on, well, I'll just point to up here. What are these weird shapes over here? Like right there in the middle, there's two of them. Because the street does not continue, but it's made to where it could continue, right?
That's correct. So that's actually an extension of North Lincoln.
What are these two little kidney-shaped things right there?
So that, as part of their proposal, they had like a walking path around the pond and around those lots. And so in those locations, it just separates from the sidewalk that'll be with the street and then rejoins the street sidewalk. Just kind of aesthetic.
I remember when we did these commercial lots for Sue Ellen, but I did not realize that there were this many homes here. What is this right here?
That is Best Vet, the warehouse on Brashears and Country Club.
Is it part of this whole, did we approve this at the same time?
No, that was earlier. They're actually very close. I think they've completed construction. They just have punch list items left.
Okay, I got several other questions. Let me ask, what, in terms of this, what we're looking at here, because we're talking about street parking, how wide are these streets? Can you tell by looking?
The 30 feet back to back. So the no parking requirement, staff's concern was, since these lots are so close together, there's not actually space for somebody to park between one driveway and another without blocking somebody's entrance into the property. So it's more of a feasibility issue than it is an actual street width issue.
But from curb to curb, 30 feet?
30 feet,
Okay.
correct.
I heard earlier you stated the parking enforcement is through the covenant. Well, that means there'll be street parking, because we all know covenants are about as enforceable as nothing. I hear it all the time, and just yesterday had a friend that lives in Ravenwood say, it happens all the time, even though the covenants say no street parking. So what it looks like on the proposal here, is there 6 townhomes per building? Is that what that means, each little rectangle? Is that right?
Yes, so each rectangle represents a little townhome lot. So yeah, I believe they each have 6 per building.
You'd have one building, but it would have like 6 townhomes within the,
They would all be attached, so
Yeah.
6 attached townhomes. It
and
would
then the
look like
dark
one
lines in
building.
the middle are those fences?
Those are sidewalks to allow connectivity, and that was also for fire purposes.
Okay. So there's no fences between the buildings?
No fences will be permitted. I believe that's also a plat note on there, and that was to preserve those sidewalks to where people weren't seeing a row of fences while they're walking down that.
Okay. We were talking a moment ago, Megan, you said this is unique in not having done this before, really. So I will argue that, Chris, what you said, the design standard that was accepted earlier, we really haven't had anything until this that is like this. This is unique. So we can't be expected to have to vote something, that we're required to vote something, if we've never had this come to us before. In that it's just been said by staff that this is unique. There was a weird shaped property recently we approved on Kenwood. Now, wasn't that, it was like a triangle, wasn't that townhomes as well?
Yeah, the Kenwood townhomes. In my time, those have been the first, this one and Kenwood have been the first ones that I've seen come through since I've started at Siloam
But
over
the
2 years
Kenwood
ago.
did not have them jam-packed this tightly, it didn't seem, and that there was actual parking lots in between each home, each,
So that was a
building.
multifamily
Yeah.
townhome complex.
Okay.
This one is a single-family attached, which is the difference. But our code considers single-family attached, use unit 5 multifamily. So it's kind of similar, but it's kind of not.
I also, like Director Long said, if our R2 is 7,000 square feet, and this is a smidge over 2,000, I mean, it is different, but the fact that we recently hit 54%, that our town is now considered low-income housing, because the majority is low-income housing. I have been harping on it for years. I railed on it, and everybody thought I was crazy to say we need a 6-month moratorium, because you just have to say, when is enough enough? And it seems like the directive for years, many years, has been more and more and more small homes. And the directive was because it was more utility customers, more income. And I have to say, at some point, we lose our sense of identity and our sense of what Siloam is about to keep building more and more and more and not have a clear balance of different size homes.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Mindy.
are you done, David?
I think if I forgot something, I'll bring it up again, so go ahead.
Okay. I'm a little confused, so I just need some help here. This may be apples and oranges, but, and I know we've all slept since a year ago, but this was all ringing a bell with me, this development, and it looks like in July of 2023, we had a pretty thorough description of what this property was going to be when we approved the zoning request, right? I mean, they gave us a several-page document telling us exactly what all this was going to be. Has it changed much since then? Okay. And we voted unanimously to change the zoning, so I think we were aware of that. And I guess I just have a different perspective on, I get, there was a time when I was concerned when we kept having developments brought to us that we were going to overdo it. We were going to have empty houses somewhere. And I didn't think that was going to be a good situation. But my understanding is these houses are selling as quickly as we're building them. My understanding is not so much to increase our utilities, but to provide housing for the people that are looking for housing in Northwest Arkansas. Reed, do you have information to share in terms of who's looking for what, where, and because you're in the realty business? I would appreciate your input on that because, I mean, like I said, I may be wrong, but I thought we were filling up the homes as quickly as we were building them. Do you have any more perspective on that?
The homes, Madam Mayor,
Yes, Reed.
the homes that are being built are being sold. We don't have large numbers of empties at this time. We are seeing incentives increase, meaning I think especially your national builders are trying to curtail a lull. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're sitting empty longer. I think they're just trying to be proactive with it.
What do you mean incentives, Reed?
Yeah.
They may provide $6,000 or $10,000 toward closing costs and prepaids, which helps especially a first-time home buyer.
Incentives to the buyers.
Yeah, it's incentives to the buyers.
That's quite a bit of money.
We're seeing those come around, and that does kind of tell you that we need to be careful, in my opinion. Careful in that if we get overbuilt and all of a sudden we're seeing a bunch of empties, then we may experience something like other cities around the nation are. We are in a bubble, and sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not good. When things are really bad in the nation, we don't experience that. When they're really good within the nation, we may not go quite as high, but we seem to have more of an equilibrium. I do think we have some areas of concern that we need to work through as far as homes that have more square footage. As you've heard for the last 7 years from me, we need some senior housing. So I know that's there. Something like this, my concern with this is not so much what's happening today. What will this look like in 10 years, in 20 years? I've been over to Springdale, and I just helped someone get a home sold. The neighborhood was designed for seniors, smaller homes. The covenants were there. Now the covenants are not in place, and it's being occupied. And the way we spoke about our kayak park, the homes are being overloved. You're seeing single families move in there when it was designed for a couple. Now you're seeing mom, dad, 3 or 4 or 5 children. And again, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that's not what it was designed for. And that would be my concern with this, that we don't say this looks great now, and then in 15 years, we're saying It's not what it was designed for, and we have a problem.
Kevin, did you have something? No, Chris?
Yes, Madam Mayor. And part of my job is to advise. So I wanted to start by saying that this area is, in our comprehensive plan, has a primary use designation of medium-density residential, and townhome is considered very appropriate in this area. But I did also want to point out that I have heard discussion about R2 zoning. This lot is not zoned R2. This is.
Can I interrupt you a second? There's a comprehensive plan for the city?
There is.
I would like that tonight, please. I want to see that.
Well, I can get that to you tomorrow morning.
All right, tomorrow morning. Thank
It's
you.
available on our website. If you just go to the search bar and type in 2040 comprehensive, it pulls up right there.
Well, you seem very informed about it. So what percentage should we have?
We're not prepared to answer questions on the fly relative to the comprehensive plan. We have the information relative to.
You brought it up, not me. So we have a comprehensive plan, but as far as I can tell, the board's unaware of it.
No, the board is aware of it. They've approved the comprehensive master plan.
But I don't think
They haven't
anybody's
voted on
aware
it.
of what the percentage of the balance is supposed to be.
And we can take a look at that and get additional information.
I'm not even sure it actually addresses that number.
I did want to say for this specific lot, is an appropriate use is townhomes. It's considered very appropriate in the comprehensive plan. This lot is not zoned R2, it's zoned PD, and it does have some custom standards, and I could share a few of those. Minimum lot surface area that was approved in the ordinance for the rezone on July 18th, 2023 is 2,060 square feet for lots containing use 3, 4, and 5. Minimum lot width is 26.29 feet for lots containing use 3, 4, and 5. Maximum lot coverage is 78% of the lot surface area within the planned development. There are some additional things to consider in the PD zoning. However, the PD zoning is a separate zoning district than the R2.
Madam Mayor, I have on several occasions spoke about my uncomfortableness about PD. I feel like that it is very specifically designed with no yards and too many houses in a small location. And we just keep doing it. And when I say, well, we need to address this, whoever said 2,000 square feet yard is big enough, that needs to be we need to change that. Yet, no, there are no changes. And so I'm very uncomfortable with little bitty lots and houses filling it up and cars everywhere. So I think that on several occasions, this board has mentioned that PD needed to be addressed, and we were told that's coming maybe next summer.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, staff. So I think that after your discussion that you all have kind of given the administrator and staff some points that you would like to have more information on. So I would turn that
Madam
back to
Mayor,
you.
If you would go back to the July 18th meeting, 2023, and in the archives, it will tell you exactly what was presented. It'll show you the presentations, and it'll give you a little history. Again, this was something that was approved well over a year ago, and it's taken a little time to get here because of the land sale and the development that went along with this. So again, we're just trying to give you, Chris wasn't here at the time, so we're just trying to give you the best catch-up version that we can, and it's for you.
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
So if you go to the July 18th board meeting, what you're going to see is them requesting to combine readings. If you go to I think it was July 5th that we had that meeting in 2023 because of the holiday. It'll be the meeting before that July 18th one where we actually gave the presentation and we had a lot of discussion on it because we do that on first readings.
So you confused me. Go to the 7-5 meeting or the 7-18 meeting?
The 718 will show the combining of the readings, because that was the second reading for it.
So
The
the
July
first reading
5th one
was-
will be the first reading with the
Okay.
presentation and discussion.
Okay,
Just
so the
wanted to-
presentation's on the July 5th? Okay.
All right, thank you all. Alan? Is
Madam Mayor,
that
that's
it?
all- That is the agenda, and I will turn it back over to you.
All right, sir, thank you. So with that, we will, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn this pre-agenda meeting. We will have a break, and then we will reconvene at, let's say, 5:30 to start our budget meeting. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Do I have a second? We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Hey, Chris, I had a real quick question.